So for the decorating of my super large gatefold card, I'm using the Sub-Zero collection by Simple Stories. This is the paper collection in the July kit from AmiraInOz Scrap and Craft. And the whole reason why I amended the dimensions of this project from the original video that I watched is that I needed this section here to be 4 by 4 so that I could feature these beautiful, beautiful 4 by 4 elements. And so what I was hoping to do is get the 4 by 4 onto here, and then the 4 by 6 elements onto here, which will be just perfect. So here and on the middle and on the outside. So this is going to be my Sub-Zero gatefold card. So I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to start cutting out my 4 by 6 and my 4 by 4 elements just so that I can have them ready, so I can start seeing where I want to place each one and start the whole design or decorating process. I thought at first that I wanted that bear to be at the front, but I always knew that the lodge was going to be there too, and I thought that the bear was too big in comparison to the lodge. So I decided that the bear was going to be on the inside, and then it was just a matter of whether Baby It's Cold was going to be on the outside or whether the ski hill was going to be next to the lodge. I then go into the middle here and I'm starting to figure out which of the 4 by 4s are going to go into the middle there. And so because I had the bear, I thought that it would be really cute to have the moose and the snowman there as well. But I also loved that Hit the Slopes and Escape to the Mountain ones. So I'll show you what I did with them later on. So you'll notice that the gatefold card is actually 6.5 inches tall and that the elements are 4 by 6. And so I always had that 1/4 of an inch on either side or a 1/2 inch on the one side. So for the polar bear, I decided to use those symbols that indicate the difficulty of the slopes there. And then I go on to attaching the 4 by 4 elements. I had to shave just a little bit off on either side because I wanted them to be within the fold and the score marks and that they didn't interfere with the whole folding mechanism. Now for the two cards that are the Escape to the Mountain and Hit the Slopes, they are sitting on 2.5 by 4 panels, and I did decide to cut them in half and then butt them up against each other so that they looked almost like they were one piece, but when you folded the card, they did separate nicely along the score mark. I did just end up taking a little bit off the top and the outer edges, just making sure that that mechanism is still working. For the two parts that are on either side of the moose and the snowman, I decided to leave them just blank pattern paper, so I loved using that flannel pattern there. I think this is where I decided that the slope is going to be in the center of the card, which means that Baby It's Cold was going to be on the front cover. So I love this red and white pattern. It looks like a winter sweater, and so I cut 1.25 inches by 12 strips, and they were going to go along the bottom and the top, and they actually give such a beautiful winter feel to the card. I really love this design. I almost want to order a sweater in this design. As I'm adding it on, I'm making sure that I'm burnishing and following the score lines, and I'm also wiping some of the oozing glue on the back of my hand. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pay attention to the center of the card. I do decide to grab this sheet of snowmen, and I do end up fussy cutting a whole lot of snowmen, and I make it so that they're all coming down the slope there with the one big guy at the bottom, so it looks like a little bit of perspective. So he's the closest one, so he's big, and the other guys are far away and they look small. I did end up popping them up on 3D foam tape because that just looked, I thought it looked much better. There's a joint at the very top there, and what I did was I put that loading zone sign to cover it, and then I made it so that the difficulties were the intermediate and the beginner slope on the left hand side, and the triple diamond black run was on the right. I did end up holding the gatefold card closed with a bulldog clip because it was just popping all over the place, and I just needed a little bit of help staying in place while I worked. So the Vintage Sled Company, I loved putting this one down because I love the color red. It seemed to accentuate the sweater pattern. It just had to go there. I loved it. And slowly I can see my gatefold card taking shape and telling a story. So I'm back here to the front trying to figure out what I'm doing. And I thought what I would do is pop out some of these windows and put some snowmen behind there like they were in there looking out. I thought that was too cute. It had to be done. I then decided that the icicle pattern in the Baby It's Cold card went really well with that top border strip that I applied on the left hand side, so I switched it around so that the lodge was going to be on the right hand side. I did decide that it can go just over the craft and I didn't need a pattern behind it because I didn't want to make it too busy, and it was just a matter of adding elements to fill up the empty spaces. I did think of perhaps making a whole lot of snowmen at the very top there, but I did end up going with the polar bear that I had cut out. He was just perfect. And then of course one snowman, he's looking for his friends and all his friends are already in there and they're looking out and calling to him from the windows. All the elements here are popped up on 3D foam tape. It just gives an amazing extra dimension and it looks just so real. I then go for this neat and tangled sequence shaker mix that was in the July kit. I pulled out all the icicles and just a few of the silver and blue sequins, and I'm just going to arrange them so that they simulate a little bit of snow and flurry. And I wanted to use that penguin, but he just didn't seem to go anywhere, so he had to stay out. So that is my front done. So now it's time to decorate the back. I start off with, once again, the lodge in the middle there. That's a 4x4, so the lodge goes in there nicely. I then decided to decorate it much like I did the front, but I didn't want to bore you too much and take up too much time. But basically, I used the red and white diamond pattern along the top and the bottom strip, and I used the green flurry along the vertical areas where you see them now. I then decided to interdisperse the Vintage Sled ad with the Ski Lodge ad, all popped up on foam tape. And once again, I am just training all those creases and those folds with that second layer of pattern paper. Now, it was really important to really crease those score lines because I was about to start putting those sentiments and those labels and those ads and those plaques at the very top and very bottom, so I didn't want to put one right in the middle of a score mark. So you had to make sure that the score marks were burnished and that you were able to put in a label or an ad or a sentiment that fit the area. And I also made sure that I put in the large enough ones to cover the join of the pattern paper or the lack thereof, as you see beneath the lodge there. And I must say, it was freezing this morning. I had my beret on, I had my house coat on. It was just so appropriate to be doing a winter theme on a freezing weekend morning. And everything here is popped up with 3D foam tape as well. So that is my back done, and I'm loving how it looks. And then when I flipped over to the front, I thought that the front looked like it was lacking now compared to the back. So I realized that I wanted to put all the little characters along the bottom. So I interdispersed each snowman with a winter sport equipment, And I'm sad to say that the little penguin, although I tried so hard, didn't even make it on this card at the end. So he'll have to come back in one of the other projects a little later on. For the very top then, I decided to repeat what I did on the back side and add the sentiments as well as the plaques along the very top there. For the vintage sled company on the right hand side there, I put a sled at the very top. Obviously that was very apt, and I also ended up cutting sports equipment like the hockey puck and the skis and the skating shoes as well, which you'll see me do a little later on. Now you'll also notice that as I'm decorating this card, I end up going against some of my folds to make it look like just a normal card. I did that just so that I could do my decorating, but at the very end what I end up doing is making the correct gatefold arrangement of the card and then putting it in correctly once I slide it in with the belly band so that the person who receives it opens it up as a proper gatefold card. Alrighty, so after everything is done, this is what it's looking like at the moment. Beautiful. And then when we flip it over, it looks like this. And when we open it up, it looks like this. I'm so happy with it. Now the next thing that we need to do is, it doesn't sit flat. So I feel like the next thing I need to do is make some kind of closure, and I'm going to go for the belly band style closure. So what I'm going to get you to do is, you know that these leftover pieces here, use one of these, and I want you to cut a 2 by 12. So 2 pieces of 2 by 12. And what we're going to do is we are going to score along the 12-inch line. Score at 2 inches, and for the second piece, score at 2 inches. So we're going to burnish that one, and then what I want you to do to apply double-sided sticky tape to this section here, as well as a combination of the tacky glue. I do this because I want that immediate stick, as well as the forever stick of the PVA glue. Sometimes when you just put wet glue, it takes forever for it to set and things shift. So I always like to use that double-sided glue for that right now stick. So then you're just going to line that up with the score mark right there, and you've got this. Go ahead and bring in our little gatefold card, and pretty much we're just going to put that straight in the middle. And I'm going to mark the center here and the center here, and those marks are at 2 5/8 from the right hand side and 2 inches from this side. Make just a little snip here till about halfway, and with the opposite one just make a little snip at the bottom so that these two can go in here like this. And however much your snip needs to be, just go ahead and adjust that for them to totally overlap. So I'm going to snip in a little bit more. I feel like it needs a little bit more. That's beautiful. So then what I am going to do next is I am going to put this on top. Now, as you notice, this was only 2 inches here and this was 2 5/8. Go ahead and take off that 5/8 so that it's 2 plus 2, so you've got the 4-inch square card on top. So that is what I'm going to do right now. going to do is I'm going to apply this only to the one side so that you're able to take that on and off by itself. So if I open it up, what I ended up doing was snipping out a wider area on this hand side, and I also placed just some pattern paper here so it acts as a stopper. So because this cardstock is, you know, kind of flimsy, and so I thought that by doubling it up with a second pattern paper that it would act as a stopper, and it does so nicely. Same with this one here. So actually what I might do is show you what I'm doing. I'm just creating a little bit of a taper here, and then it comes down to this part here, which acts as a stopper, so that when this one goes in, you're pretty much guaranteed that that's not going to tear through, and that it will act as a proper belly band, so that when this one goes in here, it's a quick way to attach the belly band. And there you have it. That is my Sub-Zero Gatefold card. I hope you enjoyed this project. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in my next video.